Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, June 6th, 2018, please come to order? For the benefit of those who may not have participated in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. 1, we will read the legal call of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. 2, the applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the commissioners and others present what is being requested of the property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. 3, there will be clarifying questions from commissioners. 4, there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. 5, first, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and second, those who oppose the application will then be invited to come forward and express their opinion. As this is a public hearing, must be recorded. It is necessary for speakers to identify themselves, state their name and address before addressing the commission. 6, the applicant is then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, at which time the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of the commission and has a right to appeal in Superior Court if desired. 7, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office, 453-8039, after 9 a.m. Seated this evening are the following: Sean Cosgrove, Matt Yurzinski, Richard Wallace. I'm Phil Johnson. Frank DeAndrea, Alan Brown, Josh Hirschman, and our alternate Scott Edmonds. George Kroll is town planner. We have Chuck. Lisa Piombino is the recording secretary, and Peter Schultz is the videographer. Just so everybody knows, we all have received all kinds of correspondence, and it's obviously a very heated issue with respect to U-Haul. And I would just remind everyone that each of us is up here doing what we think is best for Guilford, and that, calling people out is, a little over the top, in my opinion, but obviously things have happened. We will be doing 2 things in the near future right now, tonight. We're going to read both motions. One is the approval motion for this application. Another is the denial motion. We will then accept a motion to accept one or the other. That will be seconded. We'll have discussion. At the conclusion of discussion, there'll be a vote on U-Haul. So that being said, Frank, would you like to read in the call of the meeting? Oh, sorry. Richard Wallace, would you please read the call of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on June 6, 2018 at 7:30 p.m., location being the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, in the Mononkatuk Room on the 2nd floor for the following purposes: Nathaniel Tucker Yarrow, 165 Garama Road, map 66, lot 29, zone R8, special permit, 720 square foot accessory apartment in an existing structure, section 273-19. Dennis Mugen, 205 Fitch Hill Road, map 113, lot 20-8, zone R8, special permit, 621 square foot accessory apartment in basement, section 273-19. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 15th day of May, 2018. Philip Johnson, Chairman.
Thank you. Frank, would you be willing?
This?
Yes. These motions are relatively lengthy. Obviously, we're trying to cover all the bases, so we appreciate your patience.
Okay. The Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve applications by Pete Sorrentino Americo Real Estate Company, Charles Mannix, for special permit and site plan for motor vehicle and rental and self-storage facility, special permit for a change in nonconformity pursuant to section 273-13C for property located at 301 Boston Post Road, map 49, lot 30 and 31 in the TS Zone District. These applications are approved with the following conditions. 1, the lighting plan shall revised to note the interior lighting for the new self-storage building be dimmable LED system, 3000K to 3500K color, 2, after 1 year of operation of the self-storage facility, the applicant shall file a report to the commission addressing the off-site visibility of lighting conditions for the self-storage facility, including any complaints it has received regarding such lighting. Following the receipt of the report, the commission shall be authorized to require the applicant to adjust the lighting conditions to address any issues that have arisen during the facility's first year of operation. The commission shall be authorized to seek comments from the Design Review Committee and any other local board or official and receive public comment before deciding whether to require any lighting adjustments. 3, a maximum of 50 vehicles for rent or sale are allowed on the site at any one time. 4, all landscape and site improvements shall be completed prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, or a bond in lieu of said improvements shall be submitted. 5, a landscape maintenance bond to be provided prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy in accordance with Section 273-97B, subsection 3F7 of the regulations. 6, no signs are allowed in the windows of any vehicles for rent or sale. 7, prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall file a deed on the land records merging the 2 lots that are the subject of these applications, Assessor's Map 49, Lot 31 and 30. 8, the applicant shall abide by all representations made in its written or oral submissions to the commission. 9, the Town of Guilford Zoning Enforcement Officer shall be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any site construction. 10, to assure future compliance of stormwater management system in accordance with Sections 273-75F of the zoning code. A, upon approval of the site plan application, but prior to the commencement of any work, the applicant shall execute an agreement and file a bond with the Planning and Zoning Commission to guarantee completion and maintenance of the work required by the stormwater management plan. B, the applicant shall provide a written maintenance and operation manual for the stormwater management systems located at the subject site and maintain the stormwater system in accordance with the manual. The manual should provide provisions for yearly inspections, maintenance of the stormwater system, and yearly reports to the town engineer and zoning enforcement officer. The maintenance schedule should include, but not be limited to, weekly, monthly, quarterly inspections of the property for litter, monitoring the dumpster and outside storage areas, monitoring of the catch basins, the removal of accumulated material and non-native invasive species in the swales, and stormwater detention systems. The maintenance plan shall provide a statement that the stormwater management plan will be reviewed annually so that its inspection and maintenance requirements may be modified, and that any changes to the plan will require the approval of the town engineer. C, the applicant shall submit an as-built drawing of the completed stormwater system prepared in accordance with Section 273-75F, subsection 3F, construction. D, the applicant shall file a maintenance covenant on the land records as required by Section 273-75F, subsection 3G, maintenance covenants of the Town of Guilford zoning code. This application is approved based upon finding that the application is conformance with the zoning regulations without limiting the foregoing, that the commission finds that the proposed uses, a U-Haul self-storage facility and truck rental facility with accessory retail sales, are permitted in the TS zone district by special permit. The proposed self-storage building complies with the bulk standards of the TS district except for the 50-foot maximum street yard setback. With respect to that setback, the Design Review Committee suggested that the applicant seek a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which the applicant has done, and the Zoning Board of Appeals has approved their variance. We find the proposed building conforms with the 40-foot height limit for the TS district. Opponents of the application have claimed that the building exceeds 40-foot height limit because the building height, just under 40 feet tall, has not been measured from the average grade of the ground level 10 feet from the building. The average grade is defined in our regulation as the existing ground level prior to any site preparation, grading, or filling of the lot. The opponents pointed out that test pits taken near the west side of the self-storage building showed about 2 to 3 feet ground of asphalt fill on these locations. So that measured from the average grade, the building would be 42 to 43 feet tall if that asphalt fill was located continuously along the perimeter line 10 feet from the sides of the building. We disagree with this argument. First, it is known whether the asphalt fill extends along the sides of the building and thereby impacts the entire building height calculation. Even if it does, however, we believe that the intent of this section of the regulation is to prevent the applicant from circumventing the height limitations of the regulations for a proposed building by simply filling or grading the lot before the filing of the pertinent development application for the proposed building. We do not think the intent of this regulation is to require that the height measurement be taken from the virgin grade of the land, which may be impossible to determine given that much of the land in town, particularly developed along Boston Post Road, has undergone disturbance since the town was first settled in the 1600s. Accordingly, we interpret the phrase, quote, prior to any site preparation, grading, and filling of the lot, end quote, to refer to site preparation, grading, and filling made with respect to the particular project for which land use approval is being sought. Here, asphalt fill was added to the lot beginning around the year 2011, when the site was used as a storage area for millings from the state DOT project renovating I-95. There is no evidence that the storage of millings on the site was done to increase the permissible elevations of any building or any structure on the site, or in connection with any proposed building project. Accordingly, we do not find it necessary to deduct the depth of the millings when calculating the height of the proposed self-storage building here. We note the applicant has proposed 7 parking spaces for U-Haul trucks approximately 20 feet from the Boston Post Road, section 273-120A, subsection 26. While allowing a truck rental facility by special permit provides no motor vehicles shall be parked, stored, or displayed within 50 feet of front property line. The Commission acknowledges that the regulation establishing the 50-foot front setback requirements for this use appear to have been established around the year 2000 when the TS zone was adopted. While the car dealership, Mannix Motors, existed on the site beginning in the 1960s. However, in 2010, the applicant's predecessor and current owner sought the Commission approved a site plan revision for change of use from car dealership to retail sales for the Grass Island Market. That included the rental of small number of U-Haul trucks that the applicant indicated would be parked on the northwest side of the property. With respect to the right to park U-Haul vehicles within 50 feet setback, the applicant argues, 1, it is allowed to park U-Haul trucks in these 7 spaces as a continuation of non-conforming use of the site since the prior dealership on the site parked vehicles within this area and the owner never abandoned the use. And 2, even if the parking of displayed vehicles abandoned by the 2010 site plan approval, the parking of customer vehicles was not abandoned, and the Commission can approve the substitution of one non-conforming use for another under Section 273-13C of the regulations, if it finds that the new use will have no greater injurious impact on the surrounding area than the existing use. The applicant states that the new non-conforming use, parking of 7 U-Haul trucks 20 feet from Route 1 is less injurious than the existing non-conforming use parking of 21 customer vehicles approximately 6.5 feet from Route 1. We agree that this second contention and find that the proposed parking of 7 U-Haul trucks approximately 20 feet from Route 1 to be less injurious than the customer parking for the 21 vehicles approximately 6.5 feet from Route 1 as presently allowed under the 2010 site plan approval for the Grass Island Market / U-Haul rental use. Accordingly, we approve the front parking configuration pursuant to Section 273-13C of the regulations. With respect to Tanner Marsh Hill portion of the site, where the 50-foot setback also applies, we note that at the time of the 2010 site plan approval, the applicant's predecessor indicated that 3 to 5 U-Haul vehicles will be parked in the portion of that site, so that the applicant would arguably continue to have the right to park 3 to 5 vehicles in that location as a continuation of the non-conforming use. However, the applicant has not proposed to park U-Haul trucks within 50 feet of the setback on Tanner Marsh Road, hillside. And the site plan indicates only that the equipment storage would intrude with this 50-foot setback. We find that the proposed equipment storage in Flosar's equipment consists of motor vehicles covered by the 50-foot setback, also to be less injurious than the vehicle and other storage that was allowed under the 2010 site plan approval. And approve this aspect of the application as well pursuant to Section 273-13C. Opponents have argued that the parking of U-Haul vehicles in the 7 spaces 20 feet from Route 1 violates Section 273-58I, Section 2 of our regulations. This regulation is part of our regulation of signs that provides, quote, the following signs shall not be permitted, any truck, van, sound broadcasting vehicle used mainly for advertising or as a substitute for a billboard, end quote. The applicant states that any vehicle parked in these 7 spaces are to be used for rental to customers, that such rental is the primary use for any vehicle parked in this area. We credit this representation and find that parking of a U-Haul truck at these 7 spaces does not violate Section 273-58I, subsection 2. The Commission has evaluated the application under the special permit criteria set forth in Section 273-118 and Section 273-80A. The Commission is, cognizant of the many revisions made by the applicant in response to the comments by the Design Review Committee of the Design Review Committee's comments and approval of this proposal. The Commission is also aware that the applicant proposes to reduce curb cuts from 5 to 3, will be installing sidewalks along Boston Post Road side of the property, will reduce the nonconformity of the street line setbacks for parking, and will add extensive landscaping that is not present or required for the current permitted use of the site. We further recognize, as stated in Section 273-119, quote, purpose, end quote, that the, quote, "TS district is a commercial zoning district designed to permit a wide variety of commercial uses, including vehicle-oriented uses," end quote. The commission finds that this application conforms with the required special permit criteria of the regulation. Special permits are in effect June 15, 2018, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Thank you, Frank. I will read I'll read the denial motion, the proposed denial motion. The Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission deny applications by Peter Sorrentino, Americo Real Estate Company applicant, Charles G. Mannix owner, for a special permit and site plan for motor vehicle rental and self-storage facility, and a special permit for change in nonconformity pursuant to Section 273-13C for property located at 301 Boston Post Road, map 49, lot 30 and 31, TS zoning district. This application is denied for the following reasons. 1, the proposed self-storage building exceeds the maximum height limit for the TS zoning district. The maximum height of buildings in the TS zoning district is 40 feet. According to the applicant, the proposed building height is 39.95 feet. Our regulations require that the height be measured from the average grade, which is defined as, quote, "the existing ground level prior to any site preparation, grading, or filling of the lot," unquote. The applicant's test soil testing data, however, indicate that 2 to 3 feet of asphalt filling have been placed on the lot, including areas close to where the building has been situated. The asphalt fillings appear to have been stored and graded out over the lot at some point on or after 2011, when the State Department of Transportation stored millings on the lot from the renovation of I-95. Because our regulations require that the height be measured from the level before these millings were added to the site, the height of the building as calculated under the definition of our regulations would be in the area of 42 to 43 feet, thus exceed the 40-foot height limit for the TS district. 2, the proposed parking of U-Haul trucks violates the 50-foot setback for parking, storage, or display of motor vehicles in the TS district. Section 273-120A, subsection 26, allows for the retail sale or rental trucks in the TS zone, but provides that no motor vehicles shall be parked, stored, displayed within 50 feet of the front property line, unquote. The property line here extends along the Boston Post Road and Tanner Marsh Road, and the applicant here has proposed to park 7 U-Haul trucks within this 50-foot setback along the Boston Post Road. The applicant claims it has the right to park these vehicles in this area as a non-conforming use. In particular, it claims the property has been used as a car dealership since 1960, and the vehicle inventory has been parked along Route 1 since the dealership existed, while the 50-foot setback was adopted only around the year 2000 when the TS zone was adopted. It also argues it had no intent to abandon its right to park vehicles within this setback area when the current owner applied and received site plan approval for the Grass Island Market in 2010. We disagree with the applicant's contentions. We find the historical use display of cars differs substantially from what is currently proposed display of U-Haul trucks, so that the proposed U-Haul vehicle truck display would not be an activity covered by the parking of cars that has historically occurred on the site. More importantly, we find whatever rights the applicant had to park display vehicles within the front setback was abandoned when the applicant's predecessor and current owner applied for and received approval for the Grass Island Market in 2010. We acknowledge that 2010 approval included the right of the applicant to allow customer parking of motor vehicles within this 50-foot setback, and also allowed the applicant to rent a small number of U-Haul vehicles on the site. However, the applicant's representative at the time of the 2010 approval explicitly told the commission that the U-Haul vehicles would be parked in the northwest side of the property, nowhere near the Boston Post Road. We find that the applicant is bound by these representations to the commission, notwithstanding any unspoken subjective intent to the contrary, and that the current proposal to park 7 U-Haul vehicles in the front yard setback is not allowed as a non-conforming use. The applicant also seeks permission to park U-Haul vehicles within the front setback under Section 27313C of the regulations, which allows the commission to approve by special permit the substitution of a new non-conforming use for an existing non-conforming use if the commission finds that the new use will have no greater injurious impact upon surrounding area than the existing use. We do not find that the parking of U-Haul vehicles in this area is less injurious than customer parking currently allowed as a non-conforming use, or that the parking of U-Haul vehicles is in conformance with the special permit criteria 27380.a, and therefore deny this request for a special permit. 3, the location, type, size of the proposed self-storage building and use is not in harmony with the neighborhood. Section 27380A sets forth standards for evaluating a special permit application and provides in part the location, type, character, size, and use of the building shall be in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood. The proposed 49,746 square foot self-storage building is 3 stories and is at or greater than 40 feet tall at the crest of a hill and located relatively close to residential neighborhoods. Many residents of these neighborhoods oppose the application as being out of character with the area. The planning and design guidelines, Route 1 East, Boston Post Road, referenced through the special permit criteria set forth in section 273118, provides in part, quote, scale of buildings and additions should be compatible to and respectful of the traditional village scale buildings and adjacent structures, both in bold. In addition, we note the self-storage facility will be accessible on a 24-hour-a-day basis. While the applicant has attempted to minimize lighting exposures, the fact that the facility will be available on a 24-hour basis necessarily will mean that some lighting will be on during all hours of the night. We find that the proposed building scale and 24-hour use are not in harmony with the area, particularly when considering other uses allowed as of right in the TS district that would not have these impacts. 4, the proposed use will likely have a negative impact upon surrounding residential properties. Pursuant to sections 273-80A and 273-75B of our regulations, the Commission is authorized to review the impact of proposed building and use on nearby property values when evaluating special permit and site plan applications. Included in the record was a letter from an appraiser, Richard Michaud, who opined the proposed U-Haul self-storage and truck rental facility would likely negatively impact the value of nearby residentially zoned parcels by 10%. We credit this opinion and the opinions of owners of nearby residentially zoned properties who spoke or wrote letters in opposition to this proposal and find that the proposal would likely have a negative impact on nearby residential property values. 5, the site plan fails to provide adequate screening for U-Haul rental vehicles. Section 273118B sets forth 8 mandatory criteria for the approval of this special permit, including subsection 4, which provides that, quote, effective screening of parking areas from public view should be provided. In addition, section 273-120A, subsection 26C, requires that truck rental facilities be suitably screened to the satisfaction of the Commission. We find that the proposed landscape does not operate to screen the proposed parking areas from public view and is not suitably screened. Indeed, the 7 spaces along Route 1 where the applicant intends to park U-Haul vehicles are situated and oriented in a manner so that the U-Haul vehicles in those spaces will be visible to vehicular traffic traveling in both directions along Route 1. Accordingly, these applications fail to satisfy the provisions of these regulations. 6, the proposed self-storage facility provides unnecessary light pollution. Section 273118B, subsection 7, provides that lighting design should avoid light pollution and that visibility of light sources should be minimized. The self-storage building contains many windows from which interior lighting will be visible off the property. As noted above, the interior lighting will be on during all times of darkness since the building will be available to the public 24 hours a day. We find the proposed lighting does not conform with the lighting standards in the regulations. 7, the parking of U-Haul vehicles in the 7 spaces near Route 1 are used mainly for advertising and prohibited under section 273-58I2 of the regulations. The site plan shows 7 angled parking spaces near the front of the property where U-Haul intends to park U-Haul trucks. The spaces are oriented so the trucks will be visible to both eastbound and westbound traffic on Route 1. There is evidence in the record that the applicant desires to have these vehicles parked in these spaces to advertise its vehicles to the public. We find the proposed parking of U-Haul trucks at this location to be, quote, mainly for advertising in violation of section 273-58I2 of the regulations. Okay. All that being in, oh, George.
I wanted to correct / clarify something I said with reference to this millings issue. We were talking about whether or not a permit was required or should have been required at the time the millings were placed on the property back in 2011, and speculating about what happened at the time and why no permit was required. And I think I said something to the effect that because this was a state of Connecticut project, that would mean that no permit was required. That statement was not correct. The property upon which the millings were placed was private property, and therefore, at least based on that criteria, a filling or special permit for filling and grading should have been required, and that the activity is not exempt by virtue of being a state project because it was occurring on privately owned land. I just wanted to clarify that point.
Are we aware of whether Mannix was compensated by the state for their ability to place the fillings on the site?
I'm not aware of whether they were or not.
Mr. Chair, can I add, with respect to the motions, there was one reference to the map in the sort of voted section. There was a sentence on both resolutions, which I don't know if it made it in the most recent version. I can just read that.
If you would, that'd be great.
Yeah, that says, it's just an added to the end of that first part that says, as shown on, quote, U-Haul and self-storage facility, 301 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut, site plan and special permit application, close quote, prepared by Langen Inc., 25 sheets.
That being said, would someone like to make a motion for an approval?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
All right, discussion. You want to open up?
In 2000, Route 1 East, as referenced in one of the motions, was just Route 1 East study was commissioned, and the biggest outgrowth, I had mentioned this, was design review, which we still live with that commission to today. And I find it that design review signed off on this project, satisfying a lot of the needs of 273-118. The applicant was before design review at least 10 times. And I think I counted more going back to 2016, but 10 times will suffice for the record. The application satisfies special permit 2007. In the TS zone, there are allowed as motels, auto shops, repairs, manufacturing, gas stations, and yes, even auto rentals. And we do have an auto rental venue down the hill, Enterprise. Let alone we have billboards, water towers, and the communications tower. Given that, as George pointed out, some of our verbiage in our codes is subjective, so be it. As a body, we can be subjective in our interpretations also. We are charged with the interpretation of the zoning code regardless of how popular or unpopular our decisions are.
Okay, thank you. Matt, Sean, any comments, discussion, questions?
I would just, I looked over the Route 1 East planning, and I appreciate the fact that the Design Review Committee was brought into being at that time. But I go to the findings, which were in a fairly lengthy document that was produced by that group that worked on the Route 1 East plan. And one of the findings was very specific relative to their reference, they made a reference to accessory storage. And they make the point that because extensive trucking and delivery activity is associated with warehousing and storage uses, and because the modern building typology of these uses is generally not visually appealing or engaging, these uses should be discouraged along Route 1 East.
Sean, I have a question, I guess, on that. The Design Review Committee members, actually Shirley was she a co-chair of the Route 1 East? I believe she was, if you look on the front. She was a charter member, co-chair of the Route 1 East. And, that has two factors to it, what you just said. It has the first factor of the idea to discourage these, So she was a co-chair. And the first factor, which you mentioned, is to discourage these storage facilities. And the reason for that is because they would look unappealing. And now she came out and said that this building for this area is appealing. So that's exactly what she said. That's what the Design Review Committee findings were.
I think the other member of the committee said that the problem with this was that the zoning code allowed for a variety of aspects of this plan that Design Review Committee was just trying to live within. That they didn't necessarily agree with the fact that a storage facility was going to be there. So I don't think that that's a fair statement that she agreed with this.
Oh, she absolutely agreed with the structure. Whether she agreed with the use or not, that's an unfair statement. But the structure itself, she agreed with. And the Design Review Committee would not have given it their blessing if she didn't agree with it, or if the other members of the Design Review Committee didn't agree with the structure. They both said, we wish that this was a better use, but the structure itself, to them, was appealing. They hired a local architect. It doesn't look anything like any other U-Haul that I've ever seen. And to have Design Review's blessing, I think completely negates your point that you read in that Route 1 East. I can't see how you could, stand by that still with the Design Review Committee's position.
Well, I mean, that being said, I don't think Design Review was in a position to express an opinion on the 24/7 lighting of the facility.
Sure. Absolutely not. But, the Shell right down the road is a 24-hour facility, and there are more residents within.
They're not 40 feet tall.
There are more residents within eyesight of that 24-hour Shell. And are you telling me, Phil, that you're more interested in protecting those 4 or 5 residents next to the U-Haul than you are the Shell station?
I'm saying that the application before us right now
I'm
is
just
the
asking.
U-Haul.
I mean, it seems like you're playing, to a minority versus the majority of the town.
I don't think we know what the minority and the majority are in the town.
I don't think so either.
I think overall, the project is a major improvement on the lot.
Okay. Frank? Almost?
Almost good.
I'll chip in then. I think this is a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. I mean, I think it fits some of the criteria, but just not enough. And I keep coming back to, I don't think it's the highest and best use. I think that the negative impacts on residential properties are significant, and I think that's one of the primary reasons that we're put here, is to protect the Guilford residents from things that would have a negative impact upon them. I mean, if this were in a different location that wasn't, abutting residential properties, I think it might be a better use for it in one of those locations. I've also heard, people say, well, it's right next door to a big printing operation that's 50,000 square feet. But let's remember that operation is a single-story building, so it doesn't present itself as a huge building on the very top of the hill. So I don't support it, for all of the reasons outlined in the denial. I do respect everyone's opinion, but that's where I'm coming from.
Bill, if I could just address some of these denial components, because I'm struggling with I'm struggling with all of our positions on our denial, and I think that sometimes doing a shotgun approach, if we wanted to do a denial, would hurt us more than being concise and just honing in on one thing that is a denial. And, regarding the height, there was no submission by any individuals who are against this application which could precisely say that the calculation would be over the 40 feet. If it happens to be over the 40 feet, we have zoning enforcement officers who are required to enforce our zoning code, and if it's over 40 feet, they can't build, or they have to get a variance. So in terms of, it's sort of like, we didn't receive an engineering report from the people that are, from the opposition, which states that this grade and the application's height is going to exceed our 40-foot limit, right? Because the millings are there. No one is saying that the millings aren't there. But we don't know if the total additional millings are going to have a substantial, we don't know with certainty.
Well, by the applicant's own submitted test data, we know that it's 2 to 3 feet.
But we don't know where on the site and if it's going to impact it.
So are we just going to throw it out and say, well, we don't know where it is, but we know it's there, and it could be more? I mean, the fact is, once they build a building, you know, the odds of us making them reduce the height is pretty small.
It could be, look, but it could be more or it could be less. We just don't have a precise.
But it's 39.95 feet, so, you know, if it's this, it might be fine, but if it's 2 to 3 feet, according to the applicant.
But we cannot, we just can't rule on something, in my opinion, and look, I could be wrong, and we just can't, we don't have, I mean, we do not have a precise calculation of what the increase in site, millings cause to the site height.
What you have is test pits, and you can dig out the site plan,
Yep.
that are located, you got to measure it 10 feet out, and they were further than 10 feet out, I'm going by memory, I don't know what they were, more like 20 feet, I have to dig out the plans. But at that point, they were about 2 feet.
Sure.
Over. But I don't know, you're absolutely right, and that's part of the reason for the approval, by the way, is that there's no specific, that was the first sort of thing we threw in
Can I
there.
ask a quick question here, Mr. Attorney?
Sure.
If they simply took the footprint of the building and took out 2 feet of the existing millings, is this even an argument anymore? Or whether we believe it true or not?
No, they could do that. They may need to get a permit to remove millings, because that would probably trigger your excavation permit. So they need another permit to do that.
Well, they're going to have heavy equipment in there anyway for digging the foundation, right? So they're going to have,
Right.
Unless it's slab, I mean.
Yes.
well, no, even a slab, you still have to have, I mean, there's all kinds of, slab on grade, doesn't matter, you're still excavating. You still have to pour footings and all of that, so there's going to be a site, what do you call it, excavation, however you want to word it, permit pulled, because we know that to dig a foundation, they're going to bring in some backhoes, and so regardless whether, okay, you answered my question.
Yeah, I can comment
That
on
was my question.
on that issue. So there's really two questions. One is, what is your interpretation of what the regulations mean? Do they mean the 40 feet above the grade as it exists today? Or do they mean 40 feet above some other elevation based on this question of what was the intent of the fill and when the fill was placed? If you find that the regulations go to the intent question, then we don't have to worry about how much fill has actually been placed there or what the actual elevation is. If you find that you don't agree with that argument about intent, then you can require that this building, in fact, it would therefore be required that this building not exceed 40 feet above the existing natural grade as measured 10 feet around the perimeter. And they could then, in a building permit, if the application was approved based on that kind of, including that finding, then at the time the building permit is applied for, the applicant would be required to demonstrate precisely by digging test pits around the 10-foot perimeter to determine exactly how high they can actually be and whether or not they could modify the building slightly in terms of its height or regrade the site in order to achieve that 40 feet. So there's kind of two questions. The second one's a factual question, which we don't really have the answer to right now.
And that's sort of my point, is that if we don't have the answer to the factual question, I don't think we even get to our intent, and we have to just go by the application. If their application is 40 feet, 39.95, so therefore, we can't even address whether or not they are exceeding that height. I mean, that's just, unless there was an expert,
I think it's actually the opposite.
well, Why? Because how can
Because
we
we
rule
know
out
that there's
something?
2 to 3 feet of
Well,
stuff
we don't
there.
know that affects the height of the
Right, but
calculation.
why should, if we don't know that it's not going to affect it, then why should we be approving it at 39.95 feet when we know that there's stuff there?
We do not absolutely know that there is any asphalt millings in the site where that building is going to be. We know the average grade, right? That's what we know. And we know that on some spots, I think it's like 4 feet. On other spots, it's like 1 foot. Or on some spots, it's nothing. So for us to make a assumption without there have been any submission by the people who are opposing this application to show us, or, I don't know if it's our job, whomever job it is, to show that they are in fact above the 40 feet, right? We have to take the application on its face. We can't assume that.
With all the information that we have in front of us.
Exactly.
Right, and we have information that said there's
So-
2 to 3 feet.
So within the footprint, there's 2 to 3 feet of filling that will increase the site, or do you not know that with certainty?
According to the test bits, there's 2 to 3 feet.
On the whole site, not where the
mean-
facility's going. We can't make that assumption.
I think if one of the things you can certainly do is if you believe that you have to, that the building can only be 40 feet from the existing grade, but that you're inclined to approve the application based on every other grounds, you find that it meets every other criteria that are appropriate to this application, whether to approve it or not, you can require as a condition of approval that the building not exceed 40 feet from the existing grade as measured from what's there right now. So the applicant would either have to redesign the building slightly or remove some material or grade some material. The exact amount would depend on this testing that we only have very limited information about now.
I'd
You
like
said
to
existing grade as it is right now.
with the
Right.
next section, number 2, and the 50-foot setback, I kind of agree to some extent that they probably did surrender their non-conforming use. I think it's hard for us to, I prefer not to sort of make any factual finding on that, because I think that that could create a problem for us in the future, but I do think that their special permit application under 273-13, which allows them to replace a current non-conforming use with a lesser impact on the site, actually is good, because I think that the 21, let's say that there are 21 cars that park 6 feet, which they are going to have customer cars parking 6 feet from Route 1, right? That's, if each car is about 8 feet, are going to have, Frank, how long is each parking spot about? Do you have to have?
20
No,
feet.
20 feet?
18 feet, 20 feet.
All right, well,
18 is,
wide?
By 18.
No,
I'm talking wide.
Oh, wide, no,
Yeah, how
that's-
wide, yeah, that's what I'm saying, like
wide,
8 feet?
yeah, 8.
8 feet, so 8
to
times,
10. Yep.
yeah, okay, so let's just say that. So 210 feet versus 7 U-Haul trucks, let's say each one of those U-Haul trucks is going to be, I don't know, 12 feet, 13 feet,
Well, that's like the smallest one I read.
15 feet?
They
No,
have
not
26
talking
they
about
have
long.
26
I'm
foot
not talking
box.
about long, I'm talking about wide here.
Right.
All right,
But
so,
let's remember how they're parked.
yeah, they're going to be parked,
And let's remember the size and scale of those
They're not gonna
trucks.
be parked
You're
this
not
way.
talking about Mini Coopers, you're talking
Yeah.
about trucks that are 15 feet
all
tall.
right, so you think that 21 trucks are bigger, are smaller
I think
than
that
6 cars?
7 parked U-Haul trucks are more injurious than 21 cars along the road.
So 6 feet back from the road versus 20, versus what did they propose, 21 feet? 6 feet is very
Right.
close to the road, so you still think that?
I do.
Okay, that's a fine opinion for you to have. I absolutely disagree with that. I mean, I think that but that's okay.
But you're basing the central part of your argument is that this is less injurious.
Yes.
And that therefore, even though the non-conforming use really should not have been grandfathered and was actually, they were in violation of,
No, we sort of, the non-conforming use that they're trading out is a different non-conform. So they kept, on the Grass Island application, they kept the 21 cars parked in the front.
passenger car.
Yeah,
customer vehicles.
exactly, yeah. So my position is just that I think 21 cars, 6 feet from the road is less,
More injurious than 7
Yeah,
advertisements parked on
Yes.
Route 1.
that's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, and I mean, I don't think, and not only 7 trucks, but also 7 trucks 20 feet away versus 6 feet away. I think that that's a major component here, is 20 feet versus 6 feet is a huge
I
difference.
think one of the things you're not taking into consideration is the scale of the trucks in relation to the cars.
I've seen many U-Haul trucks on the road. I've seen large U-Haul trucks. I've seen small U-Haul trucks. I've seen regular. Frank, how big is your truck?
It's pretty big.
14 feet.
All right, it's a big truck, and would you consider it a passenger vehicle?
Passenger
Or
vehicle?
would you consider it something that you drive to a store and park in a regular spot?
No.
Oh, you don't park it?
My box truck or my, oh, the
Not your
pickup?
box
Oh,
truck,
yeah,
the
that's,
pickup.
that's my everyday car, yeah.
Yeah, that's your everyday car, that's what I'm saying. All right.
Well, that's not 14 feet,
yeah.
it's 12 feet.
Well, it's a big truck, big truck. So, I mean, you could have 21 of these Frank's trucks parked in those spots, and we can't assume the least. If we're looking at the worst-case scenario for you all, we have to look at the worst-case scenario for the automobile cars as well.
I think Frank's truck's a lot smaller than the box trucks that they rent from you.
It's still pretty big.
I don't know.
To make it
You could tow those. I would like to also just, I did prepare, for the harmony of the neighborhood, when determining the viability of a special permit application, we need to pay close attention to whether the character and size of the use and structure. So we have to pay attention to the use, size of the use, right, and size of the structure. It's a weird language in our regs. It took me quite a few times to read it through, but size of use and size of structure are in harmony and conform with the neighborhood and development of the town and do not decrease property values. That's what we need to be paying attention to with this application. And for me, in regard to any issues relating to the specific structure, I'm deferring to Design Review Committee. And I think the structure itself is as good as we could possibly imagine for this site. Remember, retail stores are allowed, permitted here. So we could have a Staples that doesn't come before us, that doesn't have to go in front of design review, and just parks its store right there. That, I mean, I would prefer the way the U-Haul place looks today versus a Staples there. We could have a Best Buy there. We could have any retail store that you could possibly imagine there. So in terms of the structure, I think that the structure meets all the requirements because Design Review Committee says it meets all the requirements. I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer. We have the luxury of deferring to design review on those sort of factors. That's why we implemented design review.
actually says it meets all the requirements, does it? I think they just
It
approved
meets
the
all-
design.
It meets all their requirements that they check off architecturally design. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, we're obviously, it's still the 40,000 or 50,000 square feet, whatever the size is, we're in charge of, but in terms of the way it looks. So that's what I think. Now, in terms of the use, we have two components there. We have the size of the use, and we have the character of the use. I think the size of the use, I think 33 cars a day coming and going, so 33 customers for that site coming and going is small. And I think the size of that use is very consistent with what the Route 1 East Commission wanted to have there, because that area has less traffic right now. And I think that if a retail store or a restaurant were to go there, we would see a lot more than 33 cars coming and going each day. We'd see a significant amount of cars coming and going each day. So I think that the size of the use is on point. I think that the character of the use, I think we have to look at this it took me a while to formalize my thoughts on it, but I looked at it in almost twofold. The first being that the TS zone is riddled with gas stations, automobile repair shops, automobile rental places, all of which would require today a special permit to be in that zone. And I think that the fact that the U-Haul application today requires a special permit shouldn't in itself be a denial. So that's sort of part of the harmony, characterization of the harmony.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your point, and I'm sure it's different than I'll say it. So just because these other less desirable uses are there.
No.
That's not what's before us. We're here to decide
Not just
whether or not
because-
this is the right thing
Exactly.
for right now.
Exactly. Not just because, I'm saying that the fact that this is a special permit application for this use shouldn't on its face mean that we should deny it, because I'm just saying on its face. So, and now in terms of the character, I think that the character goes into what is in that area. And if we look at what is in the area, storage facilities fits right within what we currently have there. When you have all the automotive, you have all the gas stations, and you have hotels right across the street, and those hotels across the street, they are storing people. That was a joke.
You get to live with that one now.
Oh, it was a joke. It's not going into my actual thing of that. So, anyway,
But there are.
Houses store people too.
yeah.
But there are a lot of residential homes in very close proximity as well.
So how does we talked about the fact that this is only going to have 30 cars coming and going, and that the structure itself is consistent with what the Route 1 East Committee would want.
Well, you're making that assumption.
We heard it from the Design Review Committee.
But that's not the Route 1 East.
But
That's the Design Review
The
Committee.
Route 1 East doesn't exist anymore, and the Design Review Committee is what the Route 1 East recommended for us to determine what should and, to help us guide what goes there. So, yes, I don't think that that's an assumption. I think that that's what they would want us to do, is defer to design review. Okay, so you're saying that the residents there are going to be greatly
I'm saying that
negative impacted. So tell me
If
why.
I owned a residential property that was looking at the U-Haul.
Yeah.
And it's there or not there, and then they build a 24/7 U-Haul facility right, that I have to look at.
Yeah.
I think the value of my lot is less after they build it than before.
Well, I think that anyone who is currently in that site, without U-Haul there, is people who come to look at that house to purchase it for residential purposes, they're going to say, I'm right next to hotels. I'm telling you that hotels, my experience with hotels is they keep their lights on so their guests could come and go as well. You're right next to restaurants. You're right next to a water tower. You're right next to a manufacturing facility. But the U-Haul is what is going to push it over the top?
I think it would certainly do that for some people.
Or would it not increase the value now for commercial use on that
But it's
site?
not, we're talking about the residential aspect of it.
There are residential properties that are on Route 1 that it would increase the value for.
I'm not sure I can even fathom how that could happen.
So you don't think that having
I don't think that having,
A developed site is going to be more advantageous for property values than an undeveloped site, commercial.
right, but we're talking about the
Commercial.
And
residential
I
side.
was just
But that's a
talking about-
commercial property in a TS zone.
Well, developed, it all depends on how you characterize development.
Well, what it looks like now to what is proposed currently is going to increase the value of the property. There's
Their
no
property,
question.
of their property.
And of the properties surrounding it, commercial property surrounding it. Now, I thought long about this, because we have to think about all 23,000 people roughly in Guilford, and we take this very seriously, as you said, Phil, Mr. Chairman. And, first of all, I think having both of these motions in like this, it's crazy because it shows you really, it's not black or white, unfortunately. It's all how you interpret everything. So, that said, and I'll let Josh continue when I'm done, just because, I have this fresh in my head here, because I thought a lot about this. I don't like it. I don't like U-Haul. I'm in many towns in my businesses that have U-Hauls. And I don't like what they do. I'm from Stratford to Orange to Milford. I'm all over the place. I don't like the way the property looks today. I think they do a poor job, frankly, with keeping the property nice. But that's my opinion. We moved into Guilford, and my parents moved in the 77. I only left for 4 years for college, and I've stayed here my whole life, raising my family here. Do I like it? No, not at all, personally. I wish it wasn't that. I wouldn't care if it was a local person, another family looking to build a storage. I just don't like it. That said, I tried every way possibly to get this denial and support it and be able to wake up every day And that's one thing I pride myself on, is I can look in the mirror every day, because I know in my heart I'm trying to do what's right. And ultimately, it's got to be either yes or no, and what points are made are really come forward in both of these motions. And I don't like it. I've struggled to find the denial. I think there's a lot of opinion more in here than facts. And like I said, it's torn. This has been the worst out of my 7, 8 years on this commission. Probably one of the worst ones we've ever dealt with. As far as somebody's not going to be happy either way. But I'm going to be honest, I can't find the proper reason to deny it. And I'm telling you, I don't like it. I in all due respect to the U-Haul people, and I know there was people up here saying that they manage the site, they do this. It looks terrible now. I think it's going to look better. But that said, there's just too much black and white on the approval and on what our attorney had showed us and shared with us, and that's why I asked in the beginning. If you remember, as a matter of fact, I think you asked if we could do the vote, or you said, would you reconsider, when I asked if we could not, right? And I said, no, we got it, this is crazy, we can't do this, and this is why. So, like I said, I really did. Everybody out here, I feel for you, because if I'm sitting there as a citizen, I do that, but I'm sitting as a commissioner, and I can't find the true reason to deny it legally. I really can't.
I'd like to, say, even for, and everyone could think whatever they want to think about my positioning on this. I too, all along I've been trying to have as concise of a denial as possible and trying to hone in, and I really think the only possible way to deny this would be based on the harmony of the site with the use. So the use, characterization, and harmony are the only way that I think that we could deny it. I think all these other things are just ripe for any sort of issue going forward for the town. But I just can't bring myself to say that this project is out of harmony with the area. And beyond that, I almost look at it as a little bit of defense, to the extent that we have our design review committee looking at this, commenting on it, spent a year to help make this project look the way that they think it should look for the town of Guilford. That's what we have. We could have a restaurant come in there, we could have any retail store come in there and make it look whatever way it is that they want it to look like, and completely sort of, blow off what we want our gateway, our entry into Guilford to look like. At least with this site, we have our design review committee's participation and comment on. And that's why I just think that I just can't deny it at this stage.
What do you think, Alan?
Well,
Come on in.
I've been here for every meeting, right from the very beginning. And I understand what the people are saying that don't want it. It's in their neighborhood. I have the same problem as these two fellows have. I can't justify not voting for it, only because we've tried to put things in there before. They tried to put everything from a restaurant to you name it, and nobody's interested. We certainly don't need it looking the way it is. That certainly is not an improvement. It just doesn't sound like everything I've heard, from the point that when I come over the hill, I see the sunset, to everything that's been said. The arguments just aren't there to stop it, only the fact that you don't like it. But I think it will be an improvement in the area. As far as they're going to tone down the colors of the building, and we will see that they stand behind everything that was said on this approval thing if we improve it. And I think that it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it could be a lot worse. You put a restaurant up there, or a business that's going to require more cars in there, that is a point where cars are coming from 3 different directions. You're coming up the hill, you're coming down the hill, and you're coming off Boston Street. So it's a very difficult area, and I don't think we're going to have enough trouble with traffic as it is on Route 1. I think this is, maybe you would like something better, but nobody's been able to come up with it, and I'm sorry, but everything I've listened to has not been a positive thing for me to deny it. I think it'd be good, it wouldn't be great for the town, but it would be better than what we have now. That's my view.
And along that lines, I just kind of discount anytime anybody says it's not, there's going to be a better use for it. That's not, unfortunately, there's nothing before us that's better. Nothing came before us that was better, right? So we could speculate all day on what might go there, what might, I mean, you saw, we had, I remember a long time ago, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this. I remember my parents talking about one time where the rock pile was that a local developer had proposed a movie theater or something going way back, probably in the 80s maybe, or early 90s, I'm not sure, and it was, I think it was, never even made it to a zoning meeting or what happened. And ultimately, they said there's got to be a better use from what I understand, and, it was many, many years before anything even, and that just sat there as basically a town dump. I mean, I lived across the street from there pretty much, and I watched the amount of tractor trailers the garbage that was taken out of that property. I was astounded. I didn't know. I was younger. I didn't realize how much people were just tossing garbage up there, and it was a town dump, basically. They didn't have to pay for it. So I don't want to, I just completely discount, yeah, there could be something better there. I don't know what it is. There could be, but there might not be.
But I guess, the point I'd like to make is I don't think we should be approving something because we're worried that something worse could go in. I mean, we should be
Right, or
evaluating
denying it, or
this-
something
right,
better
we
can
should
go
be
in.
evaluating it on what it is, not
Exactly.
being fearful of what it,
Exactly.
And I think that's exactly
That's
what we are
exactly
doing.
right.
It's just, that's a comment.
Well, I was just
Yeah.
actually commenting on Alan's,
okay, that's just
saying
a
it could be a lot worse. And that-
Right.
And that's not, because something could be worse is not a reason for us to approve this, to fight off something that could be worse.
And I agree with you 100%. I would not say that it could be worse, nor would I deny it because something could be better 2 years from now, a year from now, 6 months from now. We don't have the crystal ball, but, I mean,
Yep.
I mean, would it be beautiful if Mr. Horton wanted to put up some nice, pretty buildings that he did over there? Yeah, but it's not before us.
Right, I understand.
That-
Scott,
that's-
I know you're an alternate, but we value your opinion, we'd love to hear it.
He
No,
can't?
you can't, we can't even comment.
No, not after it's
Well,
closed.
it makes it an 8-member commission, may influence someone's vote.
Yeah,
We don't want to go back and review old tapes then, do we?
that happened to
I
me.
gotta say one thing. I used the exact same words that Frank used. I spent more, and Josh said the same thing. I spent trying to figure out the denial. Had a hard time.
Well, I'd like to make a roll, yeah, you did.
I already spoke my
Last
piece.
month.
Are we good with
I
discussion?
have a motion on the table.
Right, I'd like to make a roll call vote then.
Let me just make for the record, make clear you're approving the draft motion for approval?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a roll call vote. So, Sean, you'd be first up. How do you feel about this? Can you approve it?
No.
Nope. Matt?
I vote yes to approve the project.
Richard?
Yes, to approve.
I vote against it.
I'll vote to approve.
I vote to approve.
I vote to approve.
Motion carries. All right. Why don't we give it a minute or two for the,
Yeah. So, we, it's a fun times. Well, you know what? Me and you had the same, controversial one, and I think Ray had one. Everybody pretty much has one. So that's yours. So if you're chairman for the next 5 years, you probably won't get another one. So
Yeah.
don't worry. That will be it then.
only so lucky. As I said, no matter what, someone's going to jump up and down about it, and they're going to have issues because they got,
I mean, everything I said is 100% true. I hate people. I hate the people. And if it was Milano,
Do they say the same thing?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to give them as much credibility on their objection because of their, financial conflict of interest, but I have empathy for them, so. All right, should we move on? Thank you, Chuck. All right. Are we good now? Sorry, we have a public hearing to go on. So, next item on the public hearing schedule is Dennis and Tracy McGinley, 17 River Street, map 32, lot 26, zone R3, special permit for construction of a 24 by 36 barn, section 273-19. This is our second public hearing. Hi.
Over here. How you doing?
Great, yourself?
Good.
Living the dream.
Yeah. Dennis McGinley, 17 River Street. Second meeting for special permit for a post and beam barn that's over 750 square feet. So we, last time we were here, some things came out of it. There was some concern about drainage, that kind of thing. Jim Portley visited the site on May 7th, town engineer, made some suggestions. I think you folks requested a site plan. So based on some of Jim's recommendations, we have a site plan, should be in the file. And I think the request too was for Jim to approve that site plan prior to this meeting. Hopefully there's a note in the file that says that.
There are actually two letters.
Okay, good.
Go ahead, please.
Designated reader. First one is dated May 14th from Jim Portley, reason 17 River Street. A site inspection was conducted on the reference property on May 7th, and it was determined that the presence of an existing catch basin with an outlet pipe would allow proper drainage of the site by reconstructing the basin so that the grade elevation is a reset at a lower elevation to allow surface runoff. Then today, yes it is today, June 6th, from Mr. Portley again, the plan prepared by Mr. McGinley was reviewed with him on 6/4/2018 after the site was inspected in May. Spot grades are shown and provisions for lowering the grade of the existing catch basin is specified and as directed. It is also verified that the pipe that drains the catch basin is connected to the drainage system on River Street. It is judged that, as proposed, the barn can be built without drainage impacts on abutting properties. It is also recommended that the permit be approved, subject to the inspection of the engineering department prior to issuance of a zoning compliance certificate.
So it sounds like the improvements in the drain will actually help the drainage
Yeah.
situation in the area.
That's what we think, yeah.
We do have the detailed plan showing the grading elevations and so forth that Mr. McGinley is referencing, and Portley reviewed.
Probably be beyond my expertise, but I respect
very-
Mr. Portley's opinion.
It's colorful.
Any clarifying questions from commissioners? Oh, there's another letter. Would you please read it?
This is from Mike DeMeo to Dennis McGinley. Dear Dennis, my wife and I strongly oppose your current application with the Planning and Zoning Commission. We feel your proposed improvements are sound as well as well-planned and will improve the neighborhood. Sincerely, Mike DeMeo, 20 River Street.
It said, I'm sorry, can we clarify?
Supported.
It's strongly supported.
Yes.
Okay, it's the exact opposite of not
I
supported.
don't have that thing in my
So that letter was in support of the
Support,
project.
yes.
Just throwing that out there. No clarifying questions, commissioners. Any clarifying questions from the audience? Would anyone like to speak in support of the application? Would anyone like to speak against the application? Okay, move to close.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business, Peter Stevenson, 77 Fair Street, map 46, lot 31, zone R1, special permit accessory apartment, 952 square foot accessory apartment, accessory structure, section 273-19, second public hearing. How are you
Hi.
today?
Deja vu.
All right.
Here we are again. I'm Peter Stevenson, 77 Fair Street. There have been no changes since the last time we were here, other than I forwarded another letter in support of our proposal, and respecting and appreciating everyone who commented, good or bad, from all our neighbors. I appreciate it. It's the way it should work. And I addressed two issues, one with our south neighbor and one with our north neighbor. Neighbor on the north, I removed the floodlights permanently on his side. That's the Selsbach side. And I also replaced the front lights. He was just concerned from his upper porch he could see.
Felt like a train, he said, or something like that.
He said they were modern back then.
Yeah.
They were, so I put in a muted frosted lanterns there. And then on the other side, on the Miller side, I replaced the floodlights on that side. They're still there, but I aimed them down with lower wattage. And also on the main house, just to,
Well, let me say thank you very much for working so hard with your neighbors. It means a lot to us, and I think it'll help you and help them, and kind of the way it should go. So I sincerely appreciate it.
There's a letter here. Did you want me to read it in, or do you accurately read it?
I think that's it.
Okay,
That's what
I
I
think
said.
you did.
And there was a letter from a neighbor on it. You don't have to read that either.
Any clarifying questions from commissioners? No? Would any clarifying questions from the audience?
Well, Peter, I'm Michael Salzbach.
Okay.
I live to the north.
Okay.
At 85 there. And Peter's quite right. Number one, he's worked with us. Two, we really did remove the lights to the north. And I've seen in the daytime, the lights he replaced the round locomotive lights with. And they may be fine. We've just never been there in the dark.
Did he take the whistle down too?
No, the whistle's still there. We like that because we have a bell. We really do. But in any event, what we have agreed is that if that doesn't work, that A, that we'll work together. And my concern is that the light's just going to shine through the lens on this thing, and we'll have something that functions like the other one did. Maybe not. But that as a fallback, I think we've agreed that as a condition of the special permit, if that doesn't work, then something equivalent to, and I'll leave you the cut, this progress lighting lamp that's described here, which is basically a cylinder. And this we got by twisting the arm of one of the historic district architects. It's what he recommended. So the light there may be fine. If it's not, we've agreed that this one is.
Well, I guess I would come back to my concerns. We define what's fine. I know, but I mean, what you might not like, and my sense is that you guys are all good neighbors and you'll work it out, but, you know, not everyone's tastes are the same, so it's,
Yes, would everyone agree that we should use the language that the light fixture on the accessory building be replaced with downward direct full cutoff fixtures? Is that?
Comparable to, and you can make this cut.
Well, we're
It
just
doesn't
going
have to be exactly that.
Well,
but,
is downward direct full cutoff fixtures, is that appropriate, or is there something else that you're looking for?
if this cut is that,
I mean, we're not going to start.
then it's great.
Such as, you could say
Such
Such
as.
as.
But not limited to.
No, it doesn't have to be this very one.
Such as, do you object to something like that?
Well,
Go ahead.
provided the ones that we've already got, he has never seen in the dark, we just don't turn them on anyway. They've been there for a week more.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the Stevens are there, this is never going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Are you driving together, go back?
We go, no, but
We
we'll
go-
see
we're
each other
gonna
when we
walk
get
together. We're gonna walk.
Yeah.
So the point that we're left with is, or the question is, the language that we're going to say is that the light fixtures on the accessory building be replaced with downward direct full cutoff fixtures.
One thing we could, just to make a condition of approval that is somehow contingent on the parties agreeing to some unspecified thing is really hard for us to do. One thing we could do, which is perhaps not so hard, is to include a condition like this. But if nobody presses us to actually enforce it, like what you have now is fine, then it's okay, then we don't enforce this, but if you complain that his light isn't working, then we can fall back on this.
Is what you're showing us a style, or is it
It functions, I don't care if it looks like this.
Okay.
It functions just the way you've described.
Okay, so that's what, okay,
It's, it's,
downward direct full cutoff.
right.
Okay.
That's fine. I can live with
Just out of curiosity, on other accessory apartments, have we conditionally applied conditions for outside lighting?
No, this is basically because the neighbors and everyone are kind of agreeing to this.
It is a special permit, so you
So we
have
can.
some latitude with regard to conditions, but
If the applicant was completely objecting to this, we can say, well, we won't include it, and but it looks, and then you guys can fight for the rest of your lives.
The lighting issue is not being lost on anybody here.
No,
Okay.
lighting seems to be very important.
This is the kind of thing the Historic District Commission rules on every.
Okay, there, so there,
As a matter of fact, just like this.
okay. All right, so,
That
is
language-
everyone okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other clarifying questions or comments from the audience? For or against? Move to close?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Comment four,
okay.
You gotta come up to that
Please
mic so
come
we
up,
can
yeah.
get you.
Name and address for the record. Thanks. I know. Frank, you can't get over it. You
can't.
Give it up.
Winnie Seibert, 78 Fair Street. We live right across the street from the Stevensons and Kings, and I was not able to be here at the last meeting, but I have been involved in conversations with people who would like to put accessory apartments in the downtown area, and I just want to go on record as saying that I really feel that this will very much enhance the downtown area of Guilford to be able to have in appropriate buildings accessory apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrific. Would anyone else like to speak in favor or against the application? I make a move to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Robert Charney, 2 Long Hill Farms, map 85, lot 1, zone PRD, special permit for a change in PRD, second floor addition to an existing house. We are actually hoping to, in the future, it's not great timing for you, but we're hoping to be able to reduce the number of times that PRD changes come before us, but
Okay.
right now.
Thank you. And I'm not Robert Charney. I apologize.
Go ahead, Barbara.
No, Patty Biller, 2 Long Hill Farm. I'm the owner of 2 Long Hill Farm. Rob wasn't, he's our architect, and he wasn't able to be here tonight. So according to the Planned Residential Development Code, if there's any change in the amount of occupancy in any of the units, you need to get approval, and that's why we're here. So.
This is the one where basically you're getting access to the area over the garage by increasing or making a walkthrough, is that correct?
Exactly.
All right.
Is there any change from the plans from 2 weeks ago?
Nothing.
Any neighbors have a problem?
In fact, they want it done.
Okay. I hear you. Oh, well, it's always entertaining to
Yeah.
have the neighbors up.
And Long Hill Farm, by the way, they completely approved it, and they're waiting for it to be done as well, so, yeah.
As I said, we're working on trying to fast track this for people in PRDs.
Great.
Anyone like to speak in favor or against the application? Commissioners, make a move to close?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Mugen, 205 Fitch Hill Road, map 115, lot 20-8, zone R8, special permit, 621-foot, accessory apartment in the basement, section 273-19. This is the first public hearing, so we'll hear what you have to say, and then we'll get you on the docket for the next one.
Okay, my proposal to convert the basement and the garage into a accessory apartment, and then at a later date, when that's completed, just build another 2-bay garage attached to the house on the end. I don't know, do you need me to show you what it is, or?
You're just before us for the accessory apartment in the basement, not for the garage.
Okay.
Correct.
Septic issue get resolved for
So-
pits or?
Dennis Johnson is meeting Dennis Mugen
Just
tomorrow
tomorrow
morning to do some test pits, because they will have to add on to the leaching field. So we'll have those reports and everything back for the next round.
Actually, one thing that's helpful in terms of having a second meeting is we don't have to decide that without knowing all the things that are correct or not correct.
Yeah, we recommended that we add a 38-foot trench onto the end of the existing field.
Any clarifying questions from commissioners? No? Would anyone like to add clarifying questions from the audience?
I have a question.
Please do. Please come up, state your name and address.
My name is Leif Sealander. I'm his neighbor. I'm just curious. You mentioned that he's just here for the basement and the garage would be a separate issue. So would he have to go get another permit?
Not from this commission, but he needs a building permit for the garage. He doesn't need a approval of Planning and Zoning Commission to build a garage. Planning and Zoning approval is required because he's proposing to create this accessory apartment.
So if a garage is over 750 square feet, you would need a special permit for it. If it's under 7...
Only if it's detached.
Right.
The proposed garage would be attached
Yes.
to the house.
Yes.
So that would just be
Just a building permit.
if it complies
building
with
permit,
setbacks,
And
right.
he wouldn't have to come to the...
Correct. No, as long as he meets the setback requirements, the coverage requirements, and you're just
Right.
adding a garage on, then he would not have to. I mean, he would have to deal with the building department, but that's
Right.
not us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone like to comment in favor or against the application?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Move to close?
Move to continue.
Oh, sorry, move to continue?
Second.
We'll see you on the 20th, I think is the date, right? Great. June 20th, it might even be quicker than you were tonight.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Thank you very much for your time. Approval of the revised agenda. Deliberation of public hearings. So why don't we tackle,
I'll make a motion.
okay,
Vote that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit application for 24 by 36 barn for Dennis and Tracy McGinley at 17 River Street, map 32, lot 26, as shown on an application dated 3/5/18. A site plan dated received June 4/18, 2018, showing proposed elevations and drainage plans and building plans and photographs dated received June 1st, 2018. This application is approved based upon approved with the following conditions. First, the drainage improvements be inspected by the town engineer prior to the use of the building. Second, soil and erosion control measures should be installed around the construction area to protect the adjacent properties from siltation, and the on-site catch basins be protected with filter fabric and hay bales. Third, the zoning enforcement officer be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to site work. Soil stockpiles shall be contained by silt fencing or hay bales, and these measures shall be maintained until vegetation is established. Fourth, a minimum of an 18-inch by 18-inch deep stone infiltration trench should be installed under the drip edge of the roof. This application is approved based upon the finding that it conforms with the zoning code and with the draining improvements installed will have no adverse impact on adjoining property. The special permit is effective June 15th, 2018, and upon filing with the town clerk.
On 5, could we add the engineering department's recommendation, which was for the...
Did they have recommendations in their memo?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, whatever the Guilford Engineering Department's memo recommended, we'd like to incorporate. It's part of 1 through 4?
That's on the plan.
Okay.
Oh, it did, right, number 1, excuse me.
Okay, so
I'm not reading right.
Matthew seconded.
okay. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Very good. Peter Stevenson?
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for an accessory apartment for Peter Stevenson at 77 Fair Street, map 46, lot 31, as shown on application dated 4/11/18. This application is approved with the following conditions. First, that no additional parking to be constructed, and second, that the light fixtures on the accessory building be replaced with downward direct full cutoff fixtures. This application is approved based upon a finding that with the variance granted, it conforms to the Guilford zoning code. The special permit is effective on June 15th, 2018, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
Discussion?
They seem to...
I just, I'm glad that a lot of these accessory apartments don't have neighbors complaining about lighting, because that's, he took out the floodlights on the side.
But it's nice to see that he's working with...
Right. I don't like hanging conditions on people like that. Yeah, I mean, making it a condition of approval, I think, is kind of strong-armed, but if he's all right with it.
I kind of left it to him.
But he already replaced lights, now we're making him replace them again.
No.
Yeah, he did, he replaced
No,
them.
no, I'm saying he's replaced, what he replaced them with satisfy this requirement.
No, he took the round lights that were on the building and replaced them with a different shaped opaque fixture, and now they want him to replace them again.
Well, if they don't fly,
If they-
we have that as a
Yeah.
choice, yes.
I mean, it's
can
obviously
make-
not a huge expense
Well,
in relation to the whole thing, it's just,
I misunderstood. I thought that he currently had those fixtures in, and that's what I was trying to figure out there.
no, he replaced, like, they used to be like round globes.
Yeah.
And they replaced those with a shaped opaque fixture.
It may satisfy that condition depending on our interpretation of it.
Another subjective.
Well,
On the lighting.
well, he was okay, both of them were okay with this.
Okay, I mean, that's, solves our problems a lot of times.
We even had some lady that's chairman of the preservation.
Yeah. So, that being said, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 2 Long Hill Farm.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a PRD special permit change for Robert Charney, 2 Long Hill Farms, map 85, lot 1, as shown on an application dated April 18, 2018, plans prepared by Robert Charney. The application is approved based on a finding that it conforms with the zoning code. The special permit is effective June 15, 2018, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Discussion? It's pretty, we're actually working on, Josh knows this, we're working on trying to reduce the number of these small PRD-type amendments that come before us. It's tough on a lot of people, and it's usually pretty straightforward stuff, so hopefully we'll get that moved. Any other any comments, questions, concerns? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. We got continuation, so we have applications to be received. Guilford Agricultural Society, 111 Lovers Lane, map 40, lot 138, zone R3. Special permit request for modification of existing special permit conditions regarding scheduling and types of events. Special permit request for approval, future building of 4 accessory structures over 750 square feet. Receive and set public hearing date of July 18th to be continued to August 1st. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Zoning amendment. George, you want to take this one? Who wants to take this one?
Well, we're just receiving.
Oh, it's just to be
We're just
received? All right.
setting a hearing on this.
Proposed amendment to the zoning code regarding elimination of mandatory continuation of public hearings. Receive and set a public hearing date of July 18th to be continued to August 1st. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Coastal Area Management, Town of Guilford, municipal project, public water main extension along 13,000 feet of public and private road, right-of-ways in Mulberry Point, Tuttle's Point, Long Cove Association. Receive and set public hearing date of July 18th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Just a question, this was this the mandatory referral in the referendum last May?
For already, now this is the coastal plan application.
Subdivision, Vango LLC. What is that next? What is that? I'm not sure, that looks like a GPS coordinates. Podunk and Orchid Drive, map 94, lot 6, R5, 5-lot subdivision, receive and continue to 6/20. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Others, Bird's Nest, 25 Water Street, map 39, lot 85, zone C1. Request to host the annual Makers Market and Cut-a-thon, June 10th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. With a rain date of June 17th, there would be 2 food trucks off-street parking.
And they're cutting it close.
You're full of them tonight, aren't you?
We've done this one before, I remember.
Yeah, there's plenty of parking.
And the trucks are off the street too, so.
Right, they're probably in the parking lot. So, any questions, any comments? Someone like to make a motion?
Second?
Yeah, I guess.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Zoning Enforcement Officers Report.
Requesting authorization to issue municipal citations to Anne Marie Rose and Brian Boguski of 2641 Long Hill Road for failure to comply with a cease and desist order for unregistered motor vehicles. This has been a blight complaint on and off for quite many years. Neighbors are very concerned with the property. They've cleaned up some of the blight with hoop tents and met Dennis Johnson's requirements for blight. They have taken their unregistered vehicles that were in the front of the property and pulled them down the road with an old backhoe and dumped them in the back of the property, which does not meet my requirements of removing them from the property. It's just up over 80. As you're coming around the bend,
So when you turn to the left, as you're going north?
it's right on the right-hand side. It's quite a large parcel.
Point of order, do we actually have to approve?
Yeah, I have the
Didn't we made
ordinance
it-
here.
We gave Reggie that power a long time
Yeah, we
ago.
had a whole thing. We gave her. we made a-
Blanket
yeah.
authority for any violations.
We just wanted to know.
I don't know if you can do that or not, but.
I think you have to.
Do you have a motion to
Specifically says you
approve?
have to-
I'd like to make a motion to allow our zoning enforcement officer to issue fines.
We can do $150 a day for
Right.
zoning violation.
How many, what do they have to do to avoid or, stop the citations? Stop the
Comply
fines?
with the cease and desist order that I
Which
issued
is-
them,
what?
which
is
was
remove more vehicles?
remove the unregistered motor vehicles. You're allowed one unregistered motor vehicle on your property. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6,
So
plus commercial.
when you go to them, will you say, look, today's Wednesday, next Wednesday, we will start fining you?
It's been going on.
Right. So,
I think she's saying she already did
I
that.
know, but,
Was issued on May 7th, and there's still.
well, I guess what I would say is, I would give them 36 days. I would say, tell them next Monday, you're going to start fining him.
What if they don't pay the fines?
It goes as a tax lien, doesn't it?
Well, there's a whole elaborate process that's included in the
It goes to
ordinance.
court, apparently, isn't it?
There's an appeal process via the town. They can request an appeal. There are appeal officers that have to be appointed then. They have a hearing. It's quite elaborate.
Or they could just pay.
Dormer guy, right?
We've done it
We've done it
a couple times. It's,
I could also go forward with housing court and have him arrested. That's a process that is a criminal offense, so.
Yeah, let's do that.
What did we do?
And
then?
this has happened
Can't
in the
remember.
past.
We did
So he
something.
has been brought to
We might
housing
have
court
went
in the
wrong.
past. And things get a little cleaned up, and then they get out of hand again, and the neighbors are really
I have full empathy for the neighbors, absolutely.
concerned.
So I make a motion to grant the authority to Aaron on this.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Bills?
I'll move to pay the $181 bills.
Second.
All in favor? Approval of the minutes?
Seeing that Tom's substantially correct.
I read them as well. They look substantially correct to me.
I've read them. I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
Right.
And I watched the video.
Call the vote. Approve the minutes. Thank you very much. And we'd like to adjourn. Thank you.
Seeing that there's no more business before us.
Yeah, that too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, guys. Huh?